welcome to Setups, Payoffs, and Reversals, the podcast companion to the book Setups, Payoffs, and Reversals by Jake Jabor. I'm Jake Jabor. This is the episode 1 of 2 on The Long Kiss Goodnight. Joining me is Chris Bosley. We talk screenwriting, setups, payoffs, reversals, of course, and even a little bit of improv. If you like this conversation and you like action movies, or you like action movies and you like my writing, or you like my writing, please consider picking up the book Setups, Payoffs, and Reversals, The Films of Shane Black, available at weimprov.org. All right, that's all I got. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to Setups, Payoffs, and Reversals, the audio podcast companion to a book I wrote. I'm Jake Jabor, and I'm talking about Shane Black movies with my friends. Today, I have not in the studio, in his apartment, and I'm in my apartment.
My studio apartment.
Yeah, in his studio apartment, in my apartment. Please welcome friend and improviser, Chris Bosley. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Jake. How's it going?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on and letting me do the movie other than Kiss Kiss Bang Bang that I think everybody else wanted to do.
Yes. Yes. So we are doing The Long Kiss Goodnight. A bit of a sleeper hit, maybe.
Yeah.
You had reached out about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and I said I don't have that one. I do have The Long Kiss Goodnight.
I jumped on that,
and you jumped on that. So I start with asking people, like, do you remember where you were the first time you saw it? Your first, or like how it sort of came into your into your
consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to apologize to Lur and Colin, who were the guests on episodes 1 and 2.
Okay.
Which I've listened to, because I have no nostalgic relationship with this movie, like they do, I think, with the ones that they discussed with you.
Yes.
So just try and keep the backstory condensed. I watched, because I'm just a little bit older than them, so I was of an age where when Lur was playing Last Boy Scout with his neighbor friends, like that was the age I was just playing Star Wars and $6 Million Man and whatever.
Okay, great.
But so through the 80s, growing up I grew up in a small town, like about 2 hours from Pittsburgh, rural area. Okay. So I think that's one reason I also connect to Last Kiss Goodnight. Cause it's not an LA movie. No. It's, and it's not a cop movie. It's a spy movie.
Yeah.
But the setting is closer to where I grew up. And so, movies back then were super cheap. Like you could get in for $5 on Friday night. And, so we would get, all of the big studio releases, all the action movies, the Stallones, the Rambos, the Schwarzeneggers. And when I went to the video store, it was to get like the art house movies, the British, like Merchant Ivory stuff that never came to my town. So my relationship with video stores, I think, is a little bit inverse to what Colin and Lur were talking about.
Yeah.
Like that's how they found Shane Black movies.
Through the video store?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I don't think I ever saw Lethal Weapon 1 in theaters. Pretty sure I saw 2 in theaters. But listening to those episodes, I realized like those movies through the 80s and into the 90s were like my detective novels that Shane talks about, like inspiring him to write these movies. Yeah. Like they were just the like pulp fiction literally like that I was consuming every week, like depending on what was out, whether it was good or not so good.
Right.
So it wasn't until I decided to move to LA and become a screenwriter that then, as you, I think, kind of implied, like in your first blog post that kicked this all off, like when you're a white man of a certain age and you want to be a screenwriter, like Shane Black is like it's kind of one of the sacred texts of learning how to screenwrite.
Yeah.
And it was also, I moved here the year after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang came out. But that movie, even before I moved here, was one amongst my friends who love movies. They were like, oh, wow, like Shane is back. And like, this movie is so good. And then once you start taking on the task of learning how to screenwrite, then you start reading his scripts and going back to the back catalog. So I think that's a long-winded way of saying I'm sure if I didn't watch it before I moved here, I must have watched it like right when I moved here and was like deciding to be a screenwriter.
Okay, so you saw it in Los Angeles, not when you were living in Pittsburgh,
or maybe like on DVD when I was in Baltimore. Like at the time, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang had come out, and it was like reappraising like past Shane Black movies.
Right. Okay, so this is okay, this is great. So you kind of came at it from. Would you say then, like, maybe you read the screenplays? That might have been your, like, oh, I read I came out here to Los Angeles to screenwrite and read the Lethal Weapon screenplay.
Yeah, because like there are famous description lines in that where it's like he doesn't describe what a Beverly Hills mansion looks like. I think the most famous one is like, this mansion looks like the house I'm going to buy when I sell this spec. And so like things like that, like when you haven't written a script before, like gives you permission to like just do whatever you want with the format and just find your own voice.
Yeah. In another episode, Mike Leffingwell is also talking The Long Kiss Goodnight because we couldn't find another one, and I was like, what do I care if I'm doing two? But he was talking about how his screenwriting teacher sort of, God, if I'm worried I'm going to misquote it, but his screenwriting teacher was kind of like,
don't do this.
Yeah.
Even
don't do it. Yeah.
No, even like 2005, 2006, when I started this, even at that time, which is then almost 20 years after Lethal Weapon, like readers would clock that in notes. Like, you've got too many Shane Blackisms in this thing. Like, you gotta like, and I think I think the note behind the note is like, find your own Shane Black voice, like, because it's tempting when you read those scripts and they're so like dynamic and compelling, and you just want to be like, oh, I want my scripts to sound like Shane's. And I think I think in this conversation, because we met through improv and you've given me a lot of, and I think the book itself not only relates to writing, but improv, as I understand it.
Yeah, there's a little bit in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Always.
So I think I'll bring some of my writing thoughts around to improv thoughts, because I think they're pretty closely related.
Yeah.
But it's like when you see an improv team that breaks all the rules and doesn't do a herald, like you've been taught to do a herald, like you want to bring that to your own team or to your own performances.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever, I think there's one video on YouTube of Respecto Montalban, which was like Hubels and Shears UCB team from the late 90s, early 2000s. It's funny to watch because they come out and they're just totally insane from like the first get-go.
Yeah.
And I can imagine like watching that at the time, be like, wait, you're allowed to do that on stage in improv? But I think today, if somebody did a Respecto set that way, you'd be like, wait, what are you doing? I think a takeaway is like, love these scripts for the way he wrote them, but also like, don't necessarily think that like you have to be like slavishly copy.
Yeah. You're bringing like a perspective I haven't really considered in all of this, which is the idea that like I've talked a lot about or sort of focused on how a lot of movies try and emulate like a Shane Black movie, and without ever sort of drawing the parallel of like, yeah, if you write a script and you put a lot of like, as you like Shane Blackisms in it, or it sounds like his, it's like you might get feedback that says like, don't do this. And I guess the feedback from a movie that is trying to do that is like, oh, that movie was bad, or like I didn't watch that movie. But it's like at every sort of stage of development, there feels like there is this intention to be like, I'm going to make a movie like his movie. I'm going to write a script like his script. And that it's like, it's what you're saying. It's like sort of missing your own voice in it. And that's the thing that I think he does so well is like, you can't emulate him any more than you could emulate anybody. You can to a certain degree, but also, you know, from what I know, it's like the guy reads a ton, so it's like you can't really shortcut like all this reading, all this like sort of devouring of literature and words on the page, and then be like, oh, I read a couple of scripts, I think I can do this version of it. I've seen his movies, I can do my version of it. To bring it back to your improv comparison, it's like when somebody does a move and you're like, or a team has a scene and you're like, man, they were so fast and quick. It's like, no, it took them 10 years to get to that place. Like it took him 10,000 books to get to that place. Like it reads so naturally and effortlessly, but there is this component of like that you can't, that you just can't fake. You can't do your non-Herald Herald until you've done a ton of Heralds.
Yeah, and I think this is a good, because I think this is going to be episode 3, like as released. So I think it's a good like end to the first phase of Shane's career, because I think on one level, this movie atones for many of the sins that you were talking about with Colin and Lurer. But also it's coming about 10 years after Lethal Weapon. And so like the genre that he, depending like whether you want to say he invented it or he reinvented it, is now like kind of reaching the end of that life cycle. And just before because I think some of the context I know for like how this script came into being and like who made it with whom is important. But like just before we move on to that, I didn't, because listening to Lur's episode, like just my experience with Last Boy Scout at the time as a 21-year-old, like almost out of college, was like, this isn't great. Like, I don't think the nostalgia, I didn't have any nostalgia for it at the time. And so I think it's interesting that this one, even though it did okay at the box office, but didn't do what I think they intended it for when they bought the script for $4 million. I think it's interesting that it kind of almost is like his kind of almost reaching that platonic ideal of the script that he had been writing for the last 10 years. Even though it was almost like things were trends and other things in the industry were passing him by by that time. He kind of nails it with this one, even though it's almost too late in a sense to.
What do you think is passing him by at that point?
So I think one, like you can tell. So this comes out in '96. It's at the time it's the highest amount that anybody paid for a spec script, and it's still at Warner's. Like he had done Lethal Weapon at Warner Brothers with Richard Donner, like who is super A-list director. And then Last Boy Scout, I think, is still at Warner's with Tony Scott. Also A-list director, but also Ridley Scott's brother. So maybe it's like we wanted Ridley, but we got Tony. This one goes to New Line, which is Warner's, but it's kind of it's their Nightmare on Elm Street imprint that does a little bit more like kind of B-movie stuff. And then the director is Rennie Harlan, who's not quite Richard Donner or Tony Scott.
He's Die Hard 2.
Die Hard 2. And then the year before that, because he was, so I'd not forgotten it. I'd forgotten this until I started rewatching this, that he was married to Gina Davis at the time, which is how Gina Davis ends up playing Charlie / Sam. But the year before that, they had basically bankrupted the movie company Carolco with Cutthroat Island. Which had made like First Blood and the Rambos and Terminator 2. Like it was set up to be this mini major that was, but also like went all in on Schwarzenegger and Stallone and action movies. So it too, I don't know, it would have, even notwithstanding Cutthroat Island, I don't know how long it would have been able to subsist on what it was doing at the time. So again, like the players that are involved with this are maybe not quite the ones that Shane was pulling with Lethal Weapon and Last Boy Scout. But also I think this year, the big action movie was The Rock, which was kind of like Michael Bay's, it wasn't his first one. I think he'd done Bad Boys first, but like also, so like you can sense that like there's new directors on the scene. Like Jan de Bont had done Speed a couple years before. And so things are changing in terms of like who's making these, what kind of action movies now get made. And like in 3 years, Joel Silver, who Shane it was kind of like his patron saint, does The Matrix, which changes it entirely for the next decade. So I think this is like this kind of like weird, quirky, fun movie that just is sandwiched between two eras that I don't know that's the only reason that it didn't find the same audience as maybe The Rock, but existing in this kind of Twilight world.
That's I also didn't consider that, or I didn't consider sort of the studio element of it. Like, I think the headline is you got $4 million for the spec script, so it feels like maybe a peak, and it is in some ways. But you're right; it's like New Line and Rennie Harlan, so it's a little bit like this isn't Richard Donner at Warner Brothers. That's interesting. I hadn't considered that.
So I think for me, again, coming to it 10 years after it was in the theaters, and also because that was at a time, by that time I had moved to Baltimore. I was halfway through law school. And so living there, I could see all the like quote unquote Oscar movies like at the time they were coming out. So I think I was still seeing kind of big budget stuff, but it's also post Twin Peaks, which I think for people of my generation is a big dividing line between when like you started seeking out other kind of non-mainstream stuff. So I think that's probably another reason this one might have fallen through the cracks for me at the time. But then when I found it, like, I'm like, oh wow, this is great. Like, how did I miss this when it was out?
I think a lot of people have that relationship to it. Like, oh, how did I miss this? So this was the second one you mentioned. And you talked about, not maybe remembering where you saw Lethal Weapon. What about this one? Talk about specifically, I guess, what like ranks high for you about this one.
And I think like I have that feeling on multiple levels. First, because, well, one, it's, I think, basically his first, maybe only female protagonist in a movie that he's written. And I did listen to a podcast that he did on this last night before we convened. And because Lethal Weapon's a cop movie, Last Boy Scout is a detective movie, and because he was always a big fan of spy movies, books, he wanted to do a spy thriller. And so spoiler, when he first started writing it, the protagonist was male. His name was Sam Kane, which is I forget what the word is for
an anagram.
Anagram for amnesiac.
Yeah.
And it wasn't working. And then once he realized that he should be a she, like apparently it clicked and everything was great. But again, getting back to the business side of it, like his agents and producers were like, we can't sell this. Like, we can't sell it with a female protagonist.
Right.
Because at that point, there was Linda Hamilton in Terminator. There was Sigourney Weaver in Aliens.
Yeah.
And I think La Femme Nikita with Bridget Fonda had come out a few years before and done okay, but it didn't spark like a wave of female action stars. So it was a risk, and he was like, again, in the same way that he bought back the Lethal Weapon 2 script rather than put his name on it.
Yeah.
He was like, no, well, I'm just going to do it. And apparently Gina Davis loved the script, and because she was married to Rennie Harlan, it came into existence. So I think that's one.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that sets it apart and is like part of the secret sauce of it all. And then Sam Jackson as Mitchell, also like Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon, because I looked at the script, not written as any particular race. So you can imagine I think a version where like that's Bruce Willis as Mitchell, and he's doing his Bruce Willis thing. But I think Sam was just coming off Pulp Fiction like a year or two before.
Right.
So I feel like this is a thing where like somebody saw him in Pulp Fiction. It was like, no, we got to get him to do this movie.
Yeah.
I think if you read the script, one, it's just much more, there's a lot more dialogue that they cut, which I think serves it well. Like they really distilled their banter down to its essence. Mm-hmm. Again, getting back to the writing, just like kill your darlings. Less is more. But I also noticed some moments where like, I don't know if he improvised it on the set or just rewrote it as they were going, but like the one line in the hotel where she's she says to him, "What are you, a Mormon?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm drinking 3 vodka tonics and smoking a Newport. I'm a Mormon."
Yeah.
Like that is in the script. So I feel like he was adding his Sam, either whether it's him or with Shane, adding his Sam touches to the character,
right,
as they went along. So yeah, I think their chemistry carries it, even when, because I think this is the big question for the movie, like kind of whether you like it or still put it in the same category as like Last Boy Scout. And listening to that podcast, I think Shane was being very kind of diplomatic about how much of a tension between his vision and Rennie's vision for what the movie, because I think you feel it that like all of the Gina and, you know, the Sam / Charlie and Mitchell stuff, like you're loving that. And then by the end, it's becoming a more distinctly Rennie Harlan, like late 90s, big blockbuster, like we're going to blow shit up.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that Shane is saying essentially like, yeah, you know, by the end, it kept getting bigger and bigger. And like that wasn't, because I think reading the script, like it's not, they never get to the bridge that eventually blows up in the script, even though kind of the same beats are there. So yeah, I don't want to, like listening to Lur talking about his experience recommending The Last Boy Scout like 20 years later, and people will be like, "You love this?"
Yeah.
Like I don't want to oversell it because it is still a Rennie Harlan 1996 like action movie, but it is also like a Shane Black script. So I think that's the tension between it, and I think mostly Shane's vision wins out more often than not. But yeah, by the end, it kind of almost collapses under its own weight of the set pieces.
Yeah, that's I like that, the tension between the two of them. I feel like, I mean, I haven't had anybody not like this movie if I've shown it to them. It's pretty solid. I do think, and I say this, or I wrote about this, that like I think it's like in terms of, and maybe this is a little credit to Rennie Harlan, but in terms of an action screenplay, I think it's his best written one. Like, I think it clips along so nicely, and yeah, and you talking about like again, police, detective, spy, like that's obviously right there, and that's never really the lens I saw it through as much as I saw it through sort of like a guy who like got a studio deal, then that studio deal went south, so now he's a private detective, and then you know he makes a ton of money off of it, but it doesn't really do well, so it's like you're kind of like dealing in the black market of all of this. Like there's something sort of unofficial about it, which feels spy centric to me, but it's a movie that I mean, nobody has to worry about recommending anything. I'm writing a whole book on it. I'll be the first one. But it's a movie that I am like, The Last Boy Scout, I will have people skip maybe. But if it's like, we're looking for something to watch and we want a fun, like, action movie. And if I just watched it with Dan and Gilly because neither one of them had seen it. I don't think they liked it as much as I did, but they were like, this is fun. Like, it's like an easy, fun watch.
Had you seen it in the theaters, or was it like a home video kind of deal? It was
a home video thing. I think my sister rented it, and that is a little bit of like, my sister showed me The Road Warrior. Like she introduced me to a handful of action movies, and so even when I saw it, and I was fairly young when I saw it, it was like it did click for me that like, every action movie I've seen before this has been a dude, and my sister's like, you should watch this one. And there was, I wasn't like profound about it, but it was like, oh, the hero is someone who more closely resembles my sister. Not that any hero ever resembled like a 14-year-old boy or whatever, but like there was a moment of sort of recognition of like, this one is different than the other ones, but it didn't feel different in a way that felt performative. And that's something that I have kind of highlighted or observed is like, I think with the exception of The Predator, his movies don't have like a performative element to it. Like I think giving Jacob Tremblay or having him be a kid who's on the autism spectrum felt a little bit like, oh, this feels forced in there. But everything else that feels like progressive or slightly more thoughtful or whatever always feels authentic to me in a way that I don't know that he ever gets credit for. Not that he needs to get credit for it, but it's like, yeah, he stopped doing movies about cops, and whether that was intentional or unintentional, but it's like when you're a kid, you think you go like, these are buddy cop movies, and then you get older and you're like, oh, actually, those guys don't work for the police department, and those guys don't, and these guys aren't even people who like are guys with guns. Like they hold them occasionally, but mostly they don't want to be around them. And it's like, oh, so there's this sort of like, it's just as violent. They're all violent. They're all action. They're all the stuff that I like, but there's a little bit less of like the Rambo-ness to them, or the guy with a gun.
I mean, I think this one, for reasons we can, I think, start to get into, is I think even a little more quote unquote smarter about what it's like. It's comment. I think this is where you can sense him starting to get even meta about his own work, which when you get to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang will be even more on display. Yeah. But like, bring it back to like setups, payoffs, and reversals. I feel like this movie itself is a little bit of a reversal for Shane in that, like, one, he's got the female protagonist, but also Mitch, the detective, who also pretends to be a cop in that first scene, not very well. Right. Like, I can't believe that guy buys it. He thinks they're cops. Like, you know, there's a version where this is a detective story, and we're following Mitch trying to unravel the Charlie Baltimore mystery and figure out who she is.
Oh, yeah.
And she's more along for the ride to figure out the mystery with him. But in this one, it's all her, and he's just kind of along for the ride. And he ends up doing the thing that she keeps doing, which is saving his ass by the end of it. But mostly also bring it back to improv. Like, he's so strong, like, voice of reason in this, like, just like calling out like how crazy everything is that's happening to them as they go along, and be like, so I think, one, it's kind of switching the status, switching the power dynamic between man and woman, between detective and client. Technically, she's his client. But also then, like the scene where they're driving and he almost runs off the road because he sees a buxom jogger, female jogger. In Last Boy Scout is Damon Wayans. Damon Wayans might be like, yeah, she was looking for, but in this one, Charlie gets to call him out on his shit and be like, you need a brace for that whiplash. So I think that's that's one kind of like smart angle that Shane takes with their dynamic, is that, Mitch is kind of a scumbag, like kind of low rent detective, like he stole bonds when he was a cop, and but because he has Charlie there, like he almost become, I don't know, it's just something's flipped between, I think, the way that dynamic would have played out if he had written it 10 years before this.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of kind of components, I think, or factors that contribute to that. But something I think about is like his characters become, I think, like more lowlifes, but more likable as the progression of movies comes on. It's like, yeah, he's got two guys with badges, and a part of it is the Mel Gibson of it all, but it's also like, this is like either a suicidal cop or a cop trying to get psycho pension. Like, either way, it's a tough beat to have to be like, yeah, this guy's awesome. And then his characters become sort of like more like outcasts of society, more like, a con man pretending to be a private investigator, pretending to be a cop when he used to be a cop. Like, it's like they're hiring bums, as she says, and like, and it's like, yeah, with each progression, it's like Robert Downey Jr.'s character isn't in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, isn't even like a former cop, or it's like he's a bad thief. Like, he sucks at being a thief. Like, and the nice guys, it's like, this is an alcoholic, like con man and a guy who beats people up for money. Like, they get on the surface in civil society, they are more reprehensible characters, but you end up enjoying spending time with them the more they like with each iteration. I think that's like a big part of that. And yeah, The Long Kiss Goodnight is sort of that maybe that pivot a little bit.
Well, and I think because like this is again Shane kind of being on the leading edge of things, maybe too early. It's like Bourne Identity 6 years before the Bourne Identity comes out, and Matt Damon does it like much more popularly.
Yeah.
But I think what's, again, kind of going back to like what sets this apart maybe from other Shane Blacks or other action movies at the time, putting the weight of that kind of struggle that Mel Gibson was going through, or Riggs was going through in Lethal Weapon, putting that onto Sam/Charlie in this context, feels like has a deeper resonance because it's exploring these two kind of gender norms that society imposes on women, so that when we meet her, she's the frumpy mom that doesn't remember who she was before she came to this town or washed up on that beach, which is a life that apparently she loves. But then once the amnesia starts to go away, then she's revealed, like her backstory and her past is revealed as this badass assassin who like is quote unquote the bad girl. Like, if not that I think she's bad or good, but like that society would put that label on the character that she becomes after the midpoint of the movie. So I think that's, to me, that's a thing that like everything in the movie is on theme with that. Like her journey from Sam Kane, the mom, to Charlie Baltimore, the assassin. And then by the end, you'll notice, once she's kind of, at least as healthily as you can do it in a Shane Black action movie, kind of integrated those two sides of her personality. She has strawberry blonde hair. She doesn't have the brown hair. She doesn't have the platinum blonde hair.
Yeah.
Like, she's got the healthy mix of the two. And she's come to terms with both sides of herself as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah. She gets the dog that she was talking about getting.
Yeah.
And she kills a cricket with a knife.
Did Gilly have a strong reaction to like the kind of?
Not anything that we mostly were talking about who we thought would be able to do this role
Today,
or at that time, if there was somebody other than, because I think what we all sort of were talking about was how credible she seems as both characters.
Yeah, she flips that switch in the water wheel,
yeah,
and you're like, she's different.
Yeah, and there, I think she is perfectly cast. Like every person that people threw out, Leffingwell said Demi Moore, which is like I could see one side, but maybe less of the other side. We were trying. I was like maybe Sharon Stone, but again, it's like one side, maybe not the other side. It's hard to find someone who would be believable in both roles.
Yeah. So because your book is about setups, payoffs, and reversals,
Yeah.
you mentioned the dog. Thought maybe it would be helpful to go through some of the setups and payoffs and reversals, both like as a writer, but also because I think they are related to some improv concepts that might be helpful.
Absolutely.
To either side of it. These are the ones I clocked as I was rewatching it last night. I think the big one that pays off most in the end is like the whole skating lesson with Caitlin.
Yeah.
Which weirdly in the script is a bike. She's trying to teach her how to ride a bike.
Oh yeah. I read it a long time ago and that's now ringing a bell. Yeah.
But then also the later scene that pays off the skates, he did write that as like her skating across the pond, but it pays off so much better that she's trying to teach her daughter how to skate. And then later when she needs those skates to save Mitch, recurring theme.
Yeah.
Like she just grabs those skates and just like tears off across the pond.
Yeah. I mean like that's a great lesson in just like when I teach pilot writing or feature writing, it's like and people are like, I don't really like this. It's like, that's fine. I don't like, you need to get to the end because if we get to the end of this, it's going to help you fix the stuff you don't like right now. Even if you're like, how can I build an entire story off of something that isn't really working? It's like, it doesn't matter. You have to write the bike riding scene to get to the ice skating scene to see that you could make the bike riding scene and the ice skating scene.
Yeah. And I think so, just like to recap it for somebody that might not even be thinking like, what's a setup? What's a payoff? Yeah. Like you're planting a story seed early in the scripts, that ideally is going to pay off when that thing becomes essential, basically in the third act, usually, of a feature. Yeah. And so when Sam is trying to teach Caitlin how to skate, and this is after she's done the elevated version of Gilligan getting hit in the head with the coconut to undo the amnesia that he got when he got hit in the head with the coconut the first time. So like pieces of Charlie are starting to leak into Sam's character. And so she's like really going hard at her to learn how to skate, which causes Caitlin to break her wrist when she falls on the ice. And so she has to put a cast on the wrist, and Mom has to write her phone number on the cast when she leaves, so that if Caitlin ever needs to get in touch with her, she can.
Yeah.
And tells her to leave a candle in the window or light a candle in the window. So all of these things that are happening at that point, you might just be thinking like, wow, she's either a terrible mom or she's being a nice mom and she has to go away. But then become the things later on that allow Timothy to call her on the cell phone when he needs to tell her that they've got her daughter, and that allow Caitlin to hide the match that she was lighting the candles with in the cast, so that she has it when they're in the freezer and can't light a spark to blow out of the freezer. So and I think, but so that's like the mechanics of it. But I think talking about why it's important from a writing perspective is that coincidence is like your enemy.
Yeah.
So you want things that are coming from a character perspective to then pay off later and not be a deus ex machina that just swoops in and saves the day, and you're left like wondering like, okay, that happened, but it didn't really pay off in the way that is most satisfying.
Yeah, that's a great description of it. I sort of think that they're appealing to an audience because it feels like it rewards you for paying attention, like and more so than that, it feels like you're connecting with the story in a way that's like, if it comes out of nowhere, if it's too surprising, it's like, what the hell? Like, I feel like I'm not understanding what I'm watching, which is an improv thing, right? And if it's too on the nose, if it's too expositional, it feels like, I don't feel like I'm connecting with this. This feels like very broad and generic. Like there's nothing to it that is appealing to me on a level that makes me feel like, if I pay attention to this, I'm getting to see stuff that you wouldn't otherwise see. Like there's a very sort of satisfying element to it.
Yeah, and then I analogize it in improv to those great third beat connections in a Herald, where like the first thing, long form thing I ever saw was in Armando a long time ago at IO West. I never, when I was first thinking about taking some improv classes, never seen long form, but even now I don't remember what the scenes were about, but even now I can still remember seeing them pull things from the premise, from the opening, from the monologist, and be like, oh, that's where that's coming from. And then when they paid off in the third beats or callbacks, like that's the magic trick of improv, and it's also the magic trick I think of screenwriting, like being able to plant those seeds and hide them so well that like when you bring it back for the payoff, it feels inevitable.
Yeah.
Like your old inevitability versus surprise.
Yeah, which I stole from storytelling. Like, that's I think making Mitch, like, Mike and I were talking, and Mike was like, yeah, he like swerves off the road when he sees that woman, and it's like, you have this kind of character beat about it. And it's like, to me, I read that as a little bit of a setup, because when Charlie comes on to him in Atlantic City, you expect him to be the kind of guy that's going to be like, awesome. And then you get this reversal where he's like, he has started to change a little bit. He is a guy who is like, I think you're trying to bury a school teacher. Like, and that, even in the genre a little bit, I think is subverting expectations of like, these two are, like you said, Shane Black arrives at this platonic ideal of like, that's one of the things I love about this movie is like, there are a lot, and I don't really know the timeline, but like The Specialist, and there's another one with a Baldwin that I can't think of, but it's like every time they would like pair a guy and a girl together, it's like they would end up together. And it's like, that's not what this story is. This story is not saying it's inevitable that just because two people are of opposite genders, they're going to wind up together.
No, and I don't think that's even like peculiar to the spy genre. Like I know my writers group that I've been meeting with forever are 3 women, and like even like the hint of a male and female character like that shouldn't be together, like hinting at it, like is a red, like sets off their red flags, because it's so overdone that like if a woman and a man are like thrown into a situation, like the studio, the producers, like they're gonna want them to bump pelvises. So it's so much to the credit that like that isn't what their relationship becomes.
Yeah.
I think one fun, almost like an anti setup payoff is, when Sam is first in the kitchen and like chopping up carrots and like first starts to realize who she was in the past, throws a knife, like chefs do that, which is my favorite line like of the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then One-Eyed Jack shows up with the carolers, and there's that moment where like the knife is right there, and she could like do the payoff, like throw it right in his face, and because it's Shane, she picks her husband's cream pie up while the Three Stooges are, I think, playing on the TV, and like does the Three Stooges instead. But then later at the lodge, it's Mitch that throws the knife that like catches the guy, and he doesn't know to say chefs do that. But like it's a great almost anti setup payoff where like he ends up paying off the thing that she set up way back when.
That. I didn't catch that one.
I didn't catch it till I rewatched it, and I was kind of like looking for these things.
Yeah.
Do you want to also talk reversals? Because that's the other. I feel like that's almost like the flip side of setups and payoffs. Yeah. Have you heard Shane give like the haystack story in your research for it?
Wow, I don't know. The haystack story I know is like a guy gets pushed out of a plane. Oh, yeah. Good, he's got a parachute. Oh no, it's got a hole in it. Oh, good, there's a haystack. Oh no, there's a pitchfork.
Right. So that's the idea of a reversal, that like anytime a good thing happens to your protagonist, then you almost instantly want to take it away from them or make it be like the thing that creates a new bad situation.
Yeah.
Because in the same way that like coincidence is your enemy as a writer, you also don't want to be episodic in your plotting, which is a note. If you're a writer, you might get notes back saying like, well, the plot's kind of episodic, which just means, and then this happens, and then this happens, right, and then this happens, instead of, but this happened, and therefore that happened, because this good thing happened. Oh, but that set up the bad thing that happened. But then she solved that, which is a good thing. But then that created the bad thing, which now she has to solve. And like, this movie is almost nothing but reversals. Just like looking at the ones that I noted. So Mitch is like finally the one private eye that like finds one scrap of evidence in her case that she's been trying to solve for 8 years, which then leads them to Waldman.
Yeah.
But that's bad because his phone's tapped and now they're on to them.
Yeah.
And so they're like, I kind of analogize. I don't know if you think this analogy holds, but I analogize it to heightening in improv, that like you want to be like, once you find what the game is or come to an agreement upon the game, then you don't want to just sit in the game. You want to like keep taking it to the next level, in the same way that you don't want your story static. You want to always be moving it forward.
Yeah. I think that holds up. I also think that the reversal in improv a little bit is like, that's often the laugh that you get from something that isn't the game. That it's a specific people didn't anticipate. Or it's somebody setting up a game move, and then that person misses that game move. And then that person goes like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And it's like, the whole audience laughed. Like, you're not, you don't feel bad that you missed it, because we all laughed. Because the setup was there, but it was a reversal. It's not what we thought was going to happen. This movie is, it's. I'm trying to think of like. I think the whole freezer. I think from when she falls down into the basement, shoots the machine guns, and it smells like gas. That's all like. Setups, payoffs, and reversals of like, oh, they captured her, because there's gas in the thing. But it's like, oh, well, she was able to fill the baby's doll with gasoline because she's a mom, so she knows how those dolls work, right? And then you're like watching her hit it with the crowbar to try and get a spark. And I even remember when I saw that as a teenager, I was like, you got to be kidding me. She's going to get a spark off of this in a freezer. And then it's like, she doesn't. But if Caitlin doesn't break her arm, we don't get basically every other beat of that movie.
Yeah. And so let's just, so I think I'm sure your book goes into this in much more detail, but I thought it would be helpful.
I think that's great.
To set up the book. And
are you kidding? Thank you.
But let's talk about a couple, I want to say they don't work, but the underlying plot, kind of getting back to what you were talking about with Laura and Colin about how the MacGuffins of these aren't always the thing that really carries the story.
Yeah.
It's insane that he predicted the whole 9/11 truther conspiracy with this fakakta Operation Honeymoon. I don't know how I would have thought about it in 1996.
Yeah.
But now watching it, it's dude, you had to do was wait 5 years, and you would have had all the money in the world that you needed to fight terrorism around the world.
Yeah. That's no kidding. The villains in the movies, if they waited 5 years, great. If Shane Black did, everybody would have rolled their eyes at this movie because they would have been like, oh, this is a 9/11 movie.
Yeah.
But it gets to come out in 1996. Yeah, that's a great observation, Chris. Yeah.
Because it was a thing that was in the air after the collapse of the Soviet Union. There was this thing called the peace dividend, and how are we going to spend all this money that we used to spend on fighting the Cold War? And then it just all went to tax cuts once George Bush was elected. So much for that dream.
Yeah.
And I don't, Craig Bierko, famous Chicago improviser from,
really?
He went to Northwestern. He was in the same troupe that Seth Meyers and Julie Louis-Dreyfus came out of.
Well, that piece of trivia went unremarked upon.
Oh, you can't tell from it's just all improv. I think his character he's not Hans Gruber in terms of the main villain. He's a little one note in terms of he brings his flair to it, but and I don't know how much you would want him and Charlie to have a real relationship that would put more stakes into that, in their past. But it felt like that could have been a little bit more dimensional than the way it was, the way it plays, the way it was written.
Yeah. The only sort of takeaway I have from that is, she was a piece of shit as Charlie Baltimore. That's the only kind of she, you get the flashbacks, and that's kind of the version of her that's sort of unencumbered by Samantha, where it's you used to smoke and I'm coming too, and the hallucinations, and it's that spy was kind of a dirtbag. Smoked cigarettes, stabbed people, had sex with this dirtbag, but he's a little one note.
But then also getting back to setups and payoffs, when they're in the freezer, in the same way that you saw pieces of Charlie coming out at the skating lesson scene, now you start to see pieces of Samantha reemerge where she's maybe we should get that dog that we were always talking about. So it's a cool way to bring the two halves of her back in a satisfying way that there are moments where you realize, even whether it's Mitch calling her out on it or these little touches of Sam coming back in, she's not really Charlie either. If she was never really Sam, but she's also not really Charlie totally at all by the end of it. And then I think just kind of bringing it back to what we started talking about, like, I think it's a good example of why I don't think AI is going to be particularly effective, or I don't think it's the future, at least for writing. Because this is like, I mean, there's more digital effects in this than I thought there had been, even for 1996, apparently.
Yeah.
But like the bridge they blow up is a real bridge. It's not the real bridge, but it's a real model, like 1/5 scale of the bridge. And there's some of the fireball stuff, like you can tell even for 96, like, oh, that's obviously CGI. But I think like that's just the realness of it. You can't replicate that.
No.
The voice of Shane, like you can't feed all of his scripts into ChatGPT, or even all of like the bad 80s movie scripts into ChatGPT and say, give me a Shane Black script. Like, it might give you an imitation that sounds like a Shane Black script, but like all of these, like, it's not going to know how to do setups and payoffs or reversals like Shane. So I think that's like another kind of big picture takeaway from this one is like, it works, maybe notwithstanding Rennie Harlin's sometime direction, because at its essence, it's still a Shane Black script, and you can't fake that.
No, I think you're right, and it's like a little messy, and I think all of his scripts are messy. Like, I think they are so tightly written, but they are done in a way that's like, we talked about him getting kicked out of the him being like, I don't really see why, if you need me anymore, or what you need me for, and she kicks him out, and then she comes back around and picks him back up. It's like that's like a fun character moment, and I don't think it's something that ChatGPT would put into a script, because it's like, even if you were like, we need these setups and payoffs, we need these plot points, it's like, that's a moment that is like, it
doesn't need to exist other than she needs him to get the stuff out of the safe deposit box.
Yeah. It's like, he never writes anything that is like for fluff. Everything moves everything forward, but he does it in a way that's like makes each scene interesting, and in a way that's like you could do it in a less interesting way. And I think that's probably what you would get from ChatGPT scripts, is like you would get him being like, well, it seems like you don't need me anymore, and then she'd be like, I need you for the safety deposit box, and that's it, or whatever. And it's like, that achieves the same thing, I guess, but you don't get the sort of fun of like him lying there smoking a cigarette on the grass or on the pavement or whatever.
But also that's like, I mean, that's the lesson of Shane Black's career. I think even like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, who were at that time also kind of reinventing Hollywood, is like, they're synthesizing all the stuff that they were fed as children. Like Star Wars is Kurosawa meets Flash Gordon, and Shane stuff is like pulp detective novels meets Clint Eastwood. So like, don't think that if that's what you love about Shane's movies, maybe like then think like what your own influences were, and figure out how you recontextualize those for now, so that anything that like was problematic about those old things, like you can neutralize that stuff. But also like what's the Shane Black of a rom-com? What's the Shane Black of a horror? What's the, like, figuring out the things that like are special to you that can then be kind of transmuted into something universal for people to love.
Chris, I think that's a great place to end it. That's a lovely encouragement.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thanks for talking
this
about.
This is great. I feel like I got a whole. It was important that I wrote the book before I did the podcast because I didn't want to talk to people and then be like, oh yeah, and then go back and change a bunch of stuff.
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. Anything you want to plug?
You can find me in the 1992 Tim Robbins movie Bob Roberts.
Okay.
For a split second, I was an extra on that with Jack Black and Giancarlo Esposito. If you freeze frame it, you can see my head.
Okay.
So I am in that technically. But more recently, depending on if I'm in class with Craig Kakowski monthly, we do Wednesday nights at the world's greatest improv school.
Yes.
Does a show with Bob Dassey's class called Danger Room, where whatever given form we're working on that month, we'll put that on its feet as a show. So I'm occasionally in Danger Room at Ouija's on Wednesdays at 9.
All right.
And sometimes at AMBAP at Ouija.
Yeah, that's true. Find Chris at Ouija's on Wednesdays and we occasionally. And in the Tim Robbins film, Bob
Roberts. It's
Roberts.
Completely timely. It's a satire about a right-wing Senate campaign in Pennsylvania where he's like a folk singer, but he's really a Wall Street venture capitalist, putting on this folksy persona to win a Senate seat.
That rings some bells.
All
right, we'll keep an eye out for you there.
Sure.
Chris Bosley, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jake.
I appreciate it, bud.
All right.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was my conversation with Chris Bosley. Always a pleasure to talk to Chris. Very informed, very well researched. Appreciate his points of view. Good friend, good improviser, good person. And to all you good people, thanks for listening. Tell a friend if you like it, or buy them the book, or buy yourself the book. weimprov.org. It's under the merch page. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.